It's the college football offseason. This is the time of year for wild fan theories, for crazy takes that you'll never be able to back up. This is the early days of the offseason where all of that college football energy starts to bottle up and there's no outlet for it at all. And so we're used to seeing absolutely outlandish takes on Twitter this time of year. However, this one has got to be right up there with the top of some of the craziest things I have ever seen put out on social media. And when you find out who the source is, it's going to absolutely blow you away. So UNLV, this is a quote here. UNLV is relevant, and that's exciting for football fans in Vegas. Every single thing needed to succeed is here. It's taken Boise State a few decades to build its program. UNLV is now, in 2 years, its equal. Now, we're used to absolutely crazy takes coming out of the UNLV Las Vegas Rebels camp, their fan base. The majority of them tend not to be well educated in the college football world. Most of them tend to be fans of other things. Maybe it's basketball, maybe it's the NFL, and they really haven't invested the time and energy to understand what it takes in the group of five level to be a successful football team. There's a lot of assumptions simply because of the size of Vegas. That's really all you need, and eventually good things will come. And so we are used to very, very wild takes coming out of the UNLV Las Vegas Rebels camp. And if it was some of the accounts that I'm not going to mention here because I don't want to give them additional notoriety, but we all know the kind of accounts we would expect to tweet this, we probably would roll our eyes, move on, not even give it a second thought. However, this is not coming from a fan account. This is coming from Chris Matthews, I'm not sure how to say his last name. Here's the tweet. There you go. You can reference it right there, and you can see his last name. Anyhow, Chris here, he is the sports director for KLAS TV Las Vegas, which is an affiliate of CBS. This is a sports journalist tweeting this out. And there are a couple things that certainly jump off the page to you in this wildly inaccurate tweet. The first word, even though it comes at the end, certainly is the word equal. I want to know on what planet, in what inner dimension of college football is UNLV the equal of Boise State? Let's examine the records, the histories of these two teams. Boise State, in their FBS history, has 19 10 or more win seasons. UNLV has 2. One in 1984 and one this last season. The Mountain West Championships, maybe, they haven't had all the wins, but they've snuck in, they've played heartily, they have those, they've gotten into the conference championships. Some of those Fresno State type wins where they don't have the greatest season, but they still go out and win. 0 for UNLV. Boise State has 6. UNLV has 0. That's just Mountain West Championships. I'm not counting all of the WAC championships before that and everything else of the Big West. I'm not talking about any of that. Just simply conference mates, Mountain West Championships. 6 for Boise State, 0 for UNLV. BCS, New Year's 6, CFP, the Big Bulls. UNLV 0, Boise State 4. Top 25 finishes, Boise State 15. UNLV got their first top 25 finish this last year. Boise State has also had, addition to that, 5 top 10 finishes, including finishing number 9 in 2024. And then head-to-head, this is where it really gets crazy when you start saying equal. Boise State has 11 wins. UNLV has 3. Boise State's last win coming this season when they beat them twice. And UNLV's last win versus Boise State coming in 1976. Before either team was in the FBS. Well, okay, you say, now we're looking at grand history. Who cares about what happened a decade, 2 decades ago? Talk to me about what's happened recently. Okay, fair. That's totally fine. Let's look at the recent past for Boise State, UNLV, since they're equals. Let's look at the recent history, last 3 years for Boise State and UNLV. Boise State, 30-12 record. UNLV, 25-15. Pretty equal. Now, taking in mind that was during a period where 2 of those seasons were part of the 3 worst seasons Boise State history, which are all because of one reason, who has been fired, and Boise State is now back on track. But even with that, even with Boise State's worst, two Boise State's worst seasons in school history, and two of UNLV's best seasons in their school history, Boise State's still earning the edge there. But that's still pretty close. However, what did those teams do in those 3 seasons? Well, Boise State had 2 10 or more win seasons. UNLV had 1. Boise State had 2 Mountain West Championship wins. UNLV had 0. Boise State had top 25 finishes this season of 8 and 9. UNLV had top 25 finishes of number 19 and 24, if you're looking at AP and CFP. And as far as CFP appearances, of course, we all know the record on how many each team has in that level as well. So, in no world, whether present or past, can you look at these 2 teams and say that they are equal. You can talk about hype, but there's always been a lot of hype for cities like Vegas, especially when you talk about conference realignment. It doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to go into the reasons here. The other false statement made that UNLV has everything, every single thing they need to succeed, every single thing needed to succeed is here. That statement is also false. I'm not going to delve into the specifics in this video because I've spent way too many words and breaths going through that in another video. I'd recommend you go watch that. Teams you don't want in conference realignment. I'll throw the link to that as well. However, that statement alone is also false. But the other bigger issue here is not only are these teams not equal in any sense of the word, maybe in projected potential, but that means nothing. And we'll talk about that at the end. But not only are these teams not equal, not only does UNLV not have everything it takes to be successful, as we have seen from their entire history, but there's another statement here that is probably the most misleading, and I would say especially coming from a sports journalist. Again, this is not a fan. This is not a UNLV fan who got on, had a great night in Vegas, and was all high up on the winning and decided to post something about UNLV. No, this is not a fan saying this. This is somebody who purports to be a credited journalist. I mean, he's even above my level. He's not a YouTube commentator. He's an actual accredited, working for a real news site journalist. And that is the statement: it's taken Boise State a few decades to build its program. UNLV is now, in 2 years, it's equal. Again, the equal word is completely false, but let's just say building programs, okay? UNLV has almost a 20-year head start on Boise State when it comes to the FBS. But Boise State has only been an FBS member since 1996. UNLV has been an FBS member since 1978. And in those 47 years, UNLV has 2 11-win seasons. It took them 7 years. It took them 7 years to get their first 11-win season. Boise State joined the FBS in 1996, and within 4 years had its first 10-win season. So what are we accrediting as building our program? Because UNLV doesn't have any of the things Boise State has. So you can't be considering conference championships. You can't be considering CFP representation. You can't be considering top 15 finishes. If we're simply going off of what UNLV has done right now, which is a 10-plus win season, national notoriety, and a top 25 finish, if that's the only criteria you're using to judge where UNLV places itself in building its program. Again, they had 47 years to do that, not 2. This is not UNLV's second year of FBS eligibility. This is their 47th, and it took them that long to get to anywhere close to being a solid, strong football program. If that is the level that we're going to look at, well, Boise State did that in 4 years, if you're just considering 10 wins. They also won their first conference championship, something UNLV has not done yet. So they're even a step ahead in 4 years versus UNLV, who in 7 years had 11 win seasons but didn't win their conference championship. It took Boise State only 7 years for their first top 25 finish and 9 years for their first top 10. And Boise State in 11 years got to a New Year's Six game. In 11 years as an FBS program from 1996 through 2006, 11 seasons, and that's counting that 2006 season, Boise State took 11 years and got to a CFP, not to a CFP, but the equivalent somewhat G5 type rep situation, BCS days, of course, BCS Bowl beating Oklahoma in the 2007 Fiesta Bowl. UNLV hasn't even done that. So by every statement, this is not just wild and false, but it's intentionally misleading. And again, when a fan tweets something, I don't mind. I don't care. Most of the times I don't even notice it. But when a journalist tweets something, there is now an integrity sense there. You need to be factual and correct. Now, UNLV is building towards a good football team. I have said in the past that UNLV is garbage, and they have been garbage. However, UNLV is no longer the bottom of the barrel of the Mountain West. I'm not saying that UNLV is a trash football team. They're not. UNLV has elevated the level of their football team. Not anywhere near the equal of Boise State, because nobody is the equal of Boise State. In the group of 5, not a single team is the equal of Boise State. You may occasionally have teams that rise up and have strong seasons. You may occasionally have teams that challenge Boise State in those years. But when you talk about consistent success, coach to coach, year to year, Mountain West championships, Mountain West contention, CFP contention in this now new age, New Year 6, BCS, top 25, national notoriety, the level of attention that Boise State has at a national level that UNLV cannot compete with, the national brand awareness, all of those things, not a single team in the group of 5. And in truth, very few teams in college football in general can compete with what Boise State has done over the last 25, 24 plus years of their program. So again, it's not necessarily that UNLV is a bad program. It's just that trying to compare them to Boise State is a level that you should never put a team at, because they're never, ever going to be at that same potential. For a lot of the reasons that I laid out in my why teams you don't want in conference realignment video. But even though UNLV is not going to be at, and they are not the level of Boise State, they are still building into a stronger football team. I would say that they're the level of San Diego State now. Occasionally, a competitive, strong program. They'll have down years. This next season potentially is likely going to be a dip from what we saw this year. It's probably going to be a rebuild. You got Mullins coming in. He hasn't coached in a while. You've got a bunch of transfer players, but that's not the successful strategy necessarily in the new college football age. Transfer players that augment who you currently have on the roster certainly is, but bringing in massive loads, especially at positions that require key awareness between all members, like offensive line, defensive line, that's not necessarily the way that you build successful programs. It can be successful, but it is the exception, not the rule. So UNLV is probably going to be successful going forward. And I expect that they're not going to return to what has traditionally been UNLV's past in this next season. But I also don't think that they're going to be a undefeated football team coming in. Dan Mullins adjusting back to coaching, adjusting to coaching in the Mountain West, UNLV. Yeah, I know he's coaching the SEC, but they're different. They are different. They're different worlds. And again, yeah, one is definitely higher. The SEC is certainly miles above, but you're also coaching with a different culture. You're coaching with a different culture of fan, a different culture of player, the level of players that you can recruit. And it's not going to be the same. And there will be adjustments. And it will be adjustments to transfer players coming in. So again, I expect UNLV to be successful, but comparing them to Boise State at this point and saying that they are the same level, and this is, to his credit, he's not the only guy out there who is saying things along the line of Boise State and UNLV being competitors. They certainly will be competitors. Others are predicting Boise State, UNLV, one or two variations of that structure, way too early preseason type situations, talking about what these teams might do next year. And in being competition, I think a lot of people expect the Mountain West Championship repeat for the final time between these two teams. However, again, to say in the grand scheme of what college football is, that when you talk about program building, which is what this was worked around, this wasn't about can UNLV challenge Boise State next year, but as far as building a program, and that takes into schemes everything that program is, saying that Boise State and UNLV are equals when Boise State has won the last 3 games and absolutely demolished UNLV on a completely different level of play. Both times they've met in the postseason, the Mountain West Championship game, the last 2 seasons, is disingenuous at best and intentionally misleading at worst. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe. I'm sure if you're a UNLV fan here, you will not. However, please, Boise State fan or just general college football fan, Mountain West, West Coast football, new Pac-12, all of that. I am excited to talk about all of that here in the offseason, talking about the exciting new changes that are coming to college football. I've got a lot of content lined up for this offseason. The videos don't stop just when the clock hits on the final regular season game. So I cannot wait to talk about all of that. Thanks so much. This was a very impromptu video. There's sometimes you read something on Twitter and you can respond, but sometimes you read something that's just so far out there that the written language doesn't contain the the format necessary for an adequate response. So I appreciate you sticking around all the way to the end. Give me your thoughts. Do you think that UNLV can challenge Boise State in the future? Do you think that they can get to the level of consistent success that Boise State has enjoyed? Do you see a drop-off of this program? I want to have your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure there'll be a couple of angry UNLV fans as well, but I'm happy to continue to have that discussion with you in the comments below. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue!